This anime is set in a ramen shop. Named Ramen Akeniko, the shop was originally run only by cats. Until one day, a human girl came to apply for a job there. Mistaking the girl for an ordinary customer, one of the cat servers, Hannah, immediately served her. Without giving her a chance to speak, Hannah even went ahead and recommended a menu item. After the ramen was served, the girl introduced herself as Yashara Tomoko and explained that she was there for a job interview. Before starting the interview, the shop owner asked whether Yashara was a cat lover. Honestly, Yashara admitted that she actually preferred dogs over cats. Unexpectedly, this answer made the cat boss accept her on the spot. Once officially hired, Yashara's first task was brushing the fur of every cat. She was not allowed to help serve customers, as it would ruin the shop's concept. Although it seemed simple, Yashara's work was quite busy. She had to brush each cat one by one to prevent loose fur from flying around. Then, a customer arrived and caused a commotion. He wanted to file a complaint after finding cat fur in his food. Bunzo, one of the staff, explained that this was already stated in the food instructions. Additionally, Bunzo refused to offer compensation since the customer had already finished his meal. As the customer continued protesting, they eventually called Krishna to handle the situation. The moment he saw Krishna, the customer became terrified and withdrew his complaint. Afterward, Krishna apologized to the other customers for disrupting their dining experience. Despite looking like a fearsome tiger, Krishna was actually a gentle female who disliked conflict. To help her relieve stress, Yashara was asked to brush her fur. That night, after the ramen shop was about to close, Bunzo introduced Yashara to all the staff members. Hannah was in charge of welcoming guests. Sabu was the head chef. Sasaki handled customer service and payments. Krishna was responsible for making the noodles. Lastly, Bunzo introduced himself as the head of Ramen Akeniko. When it was her turn to introduce herself, Yashara revealed that she got the job on her aunt's recommendation, since her aunt was an old acquaintance of the shop's previous owner. Hearing this, Hannah seemed disappointed, feeling that Yashara had used connections to get hired. On her second day of work, Yashara was given an employee manual and instructed to follow the tasks as written. Her tasks remained the same, brushing the fur of all the employees, starting with Krishna, Bunzo, Sabu, and Sasaki. However, unlike usual, today Hannah refused to let Yashara brush her fur. Seeing this, Bunzo firmly ordered her to comply. Reluctantly, Hannah agreed but requested that Yashara use a different brush and finish quickly. The next task was cleaning the employee break room. With great enthusiasm, Yashara tidied up the space and removed all the scattered cat fur. Because she was too focused, she spent too much time there and didn't realize it was already time to go home. She also missed her other tasks and ignored the instructions in the manual. Even so, the staff didn't make a big deal out of it. What mattered most was that she was gradually learning her duties, little by little. The next day, Yashara began working the night shift. Since bowls often went unwashed during this shift, Bunzo asked Yashara to help with dishwashing. However, Hannah strongly opposed the idea, believing that a human employee appearing in front of customers would ruin the shop's concept. Bunzo had anticipated Hannah's resistance. He mentioned that Sasaki had come up with an idea and had prepared several costumes for Yashara. Yashara tried on each costume one by one. Though they looked suitable, Hannah still wasn't satisfied, arguing that this wasn't a maid cafe. However, when Yashara put on a mask and cat ears to cover her face and human features, Hannah no longer objected, as her appearance now closely resembled a cat. Before long, the ramen shop opened for business. As customers entered, Hannah welcomed them and guided them to their seats. At first, the customers seemed happy, but their expressions changed the moment they noticed a human employee. This made Yashara feel pressured. Her job was going to be much harder than she had expected. As time passed, all the employees got busy with their respective tasks. Feeling uncomfortable with her mask, Yashara eventually removed it and focused on working. Hannah warned her to keep wearing it, but since no customers complained, she decided to leave it off. Sasaki praised her work. Thanks to Yashara, there were no more piles of unwashed bowls, allowing Sasaki to focus on serving guests. Before heading home, Yashara took some time to brush Hannah's fur. This gesture softened Hannah's attitude, making her a little more open despite her usual grumpiness. The next day, Yashara helped Krishna make noodles. Since the process used an automatic cutting machine, their job was simply to roll the cut noodles and arrange them neatly in boxes. After giving a brief explanation, Krishna let Yashara try it out. Despite it being her first time, Yashara mastered the task quickly. Her human hands proved to be more efficient for this kind of work. In the middle of their busy shift, an unexpected disturbance occurred. A streamer suddenly started a live broadcast inside the restaurant. Not only was he recording without permission, but he was also causing a commotion that disrupted other customers. Bunzo warned him to stop recording, but the streamer insisted that he was promoting their shop to his 30,000 followers. Seeing the situation, Yashara stepped in firmly. She informed him that recording videos inside the shop was prohibited, as it could disturb the customer's comfort. She then asked him to leave immediately. Unfortunately, the streamer refused to comply. Even after being warned, he kept arguing that he was only trying to help with promotion. Despite his persistence, Yashara didn't back down and continued demanding that he stop recording. Some customers were already prepared to call the police, but the streamer seemed to enjoy the controversy, chasing viral content for more views. Just then, a bald, intimidating man with burned scars on his face, named Mickey, entered the shop. Without hesitation, Mickey ordered the streamer to turn off his broadcast. He then escorted him outside to give him a warning. To make up for the inconvenience, the cats gave discount vouchers to their customers. Despite his terrifying appearance, Mickey was actually a lawyer who had been taking good care of the cats ever since the shop first opened. Inspired by Krishna's noodle making process, Yashara decided to create a promotional poster. When she showed it to the staff, they all praised its eye-catching design. However, when she presented it to Krishna, Krishna immediately refused to let her use it, saying that it was too embarrassing. Later, while brushing Hannah's fur, Hannah asked if Yashara had ever made a poster like that before. Yashara explained that she had once worked in an advertising company on a small contract. Back then, she had also been scolded for doing things that were considered unnecessary, just like now. She felt like she had made the same mistake again. After hearing Yashara's story, Hannah took it upon herself to speak with Krishna. She reasoned that instead of worrying about embarrassment, Krishna should focus on promoting her handmade noodles to customers. After thinking about it, Krishna finally gave in. She agreed to let Yashara use her photo on the poster. Yashara thanked Hannah, but Hannah insisted she didn't do it for her. Seeing Hannah's reluctance to acknowledge her good intentions, Sasaki could only smile and laugh quietly. On another day, the shop experienced an unusual midday rush. The large number of customers exhausted the cat employees, forcing them to take short breaks before continuing their work. During the busy night shift, a customer started asking several questions. He wanted to know how they removed fishy smells without using onions. Bunzo explained that since they were cats, they preferred using celery instead of onions to neutralize the odor. He also emphasized that they took great pride in their service, as every dish in the shop was made by cats. Despite his initial skepticism, the customer acknowledged that the food was delicious and that the excellent service made the shop a perfect place to dine. Only after he left did they realize that he was actually a famous chef. After a hectic night, the next day at the restaurant was much calmer. Since there were no customers yet, Sasaki called in Shirosaki, a technician, to repair the dishwashing machine. However, because Shirosaki was allergic to cats, he had to wear a special mask while inside the restaurant. While the repairs were being done, Yashara continued her usual task of brushing the cat's fur before they started work. After some time, the dishwashing machine was finally fixed. As Shirosaki prepared to leave for his next job, Yashara hurried after him. He had forgotten something. At that moment, she noticed Shirosaki staring longingly through the restaurant's window. He confessed that he had always wanted to try the ramen here, but because of his cat allergy, he never could. Understanding his dilemma, Yashara quickly prepared a takeout ramen for him. This way, Shirosaki could finally enjoy ramen akeniko without worrying about his allergies. While Bunzo was preparing food for the staff, Yashara seemed to have lost her appetite. Seeing this, Bunzo assumed that she was getting tired of eating ramen. However, just as he was about to offer her a different meal, Yashara quickly explained that she wasn't bored at all. In fact, the ramen was too delicious. She had become addicted to it, and as a result, her weight had started to increase. Hearing this, Bunzo created a special low-calorie menu just for her. During their meal, the cats started talking about the streamer who had visited the restaurant earlier. Although his visit had caused trouble, it surprisingly had a positive effect. Thanks to the exposure, the number of customers had increased significantly. However, it seemed that the streamer's account had been deleted due to the various controversies he had created. After eating, the employees had some free time for themselves. Yashara decided to rest in the break room. When she entered, Krishna reminded her not to use her phone during rest time so that she could recover her energy properly. To her surprise, Krishna then offered to nap with her. Sleeping beside a tiger turned out to be incredibly comfortable, and before she knew it, Yashara had slept soundly until 5 in the evening. On another day, Ramen Akeniko received a package. Inside was a printed version of the promotional poster Yashara had designed. Sasaki had mentioned earlier that he had sent the design for printing, and the results were fantastic. Excited, they immediately put the poster up on the wall facing the entrance. Since then, more and more customers began ordering Krishna's special ramen. However, they soon noticed a problem: many customers couldn't finish their meals because the portion was too large. Realizing this, Sasaki discussed the issue with Bunzo. After considering the best solution, they decided to offer a half-sized version of Krishna's special ramen. This way, customers who couldn't finish a full bowl could still enjoy their favorite dish. Later that night, Sabu spent hours playing video games, causing him to oversleep the next morning. As a result, he arrived late to work. Because of this, Sasaki asked Yashara to go wake him up. Yashara went up to Sabu's room on the second floor. When she tried to wake him, Sabu suddenly became alert, as if ready to fight. But once he realized he had overslept, he immediately panicked and rushed downstairs, apologizing to Bunzo. Sasaki then warned him not to stay up late playing games again. Later, Sabu told Yashara some exciting news. He had qualified for the next round of a gaming tournament. Hearing this, Sasaki assumed that Sabu would be quitting his job since the tournament had a massive cash prize. He then told Hana about it, and Hana passed the news to Bunzo. This led to a huge misunderstanding. Bunzo directly asked Sabu if he planned to quit and become a professional gamer. This caught Sabu completely off guard. Panicked, he quickly explained that he had no intention of quitting, he was only participating in the tournament for fun. One night, a weary man visited a Keniko ramen shop. After his first visit, he started coming frequently and eventually became a regular customer. On a different day, Yashiro met Sasaki, who seemed panicked. It turned out that Krishna was in a bad mood, making him look upset and very aggressive. Because of this, Sasaki quickly asked Yashiro to calm him down by brushing his fur. After being brushed, Krishna felt a little better, but the molting season was still a tough time for him. He had to resist scratching himself because his fur would scatter everywhere. Yashiro then asked how Bunzo and the other cats experienced their molting season. Krishna replied that they had already gone through it before Yashiro started working at the shop. Besides, Hana often went to a pet salon to trim her fur. Hearing this explanation, Yashiro realized that he still didn't fully understand the cats at Akeniko. So, while brushing the other cat's fur, he asked them about their past stories. Bunzo shared that Akeniko ramen shop was originally a small restaurant founded by a human. However, the previous owner ate too much ramen, which caused his health to deteriorate. After various events, Bunzo eventually took over the shop. Sabu also shared his past. He used to be a stray cat struggling to survive under the scorching sun and pouring rain. One day, he came to the shop looking for leftover food. However, instead of receiving free food, Bunzo offered him a job. Since then, Sabu had become a part of the shop. When Yashiro asked if Hana used to be a long-haired cat, Hana immediately scolded Krishna for revealing her secret so casually. But at that moment, Krishna was still too aggressive due to his molting season and couldn't respond. To calm him down, Yashiro had to brush his fur again. A few moments after the shop closed, Mickey and Gosowara, who were assistants, arrived. They came to discuss a previous issue, about the live stream recording that had spread on the internet. After their discussion ended and Yashiro was about to go home, Gosowara suddenly called out to him and invited him somewhere because there was something she wanted to talk about. It turned out that before becoming a lawyer, Gosowara had worked at a Keniko ramen shop as a fur brushing assistant. However, she only worked there for a few days. Even now, she still had a desire to return to work there. Because of that, she admitted that she felt jealous of Yashiro for being able to work at the shop. Even so, she was still happy that someone like Yashiro had joined the team. When the rainy season arrived, the number of customers at a Keniko ramen shop dropped drastically. To keep the shop's finances stable, one of the customers suggested that they start another line of business. For example, selling souvenirs or photos of the cats. However, Bunzo rejected the idea. In his opinion, the shop would continue to run as long as customers came to enjoy their ramen. A few days later, the customer who had suggested the idea returned to the shop, this time with a friend. His friend was a muscular man who could finish several bowls of ramen in a short time. After finishing his meal, the big man handed his contact information to the woman and expressed his interest in ordering even bigger-sized jumbo ramen. A Keniko ramen shop was once again bustling with customers. Among them, a man asked about the differences between light ramen, thick ramen, and shoyu ramen. With a cheerful expression, Hana explained each one in detail until the customer could make their choice. When Sasaki served an order, one of the customers intended to take a picture of the ramen they had ordered. However, Sasaki explained that photography and video recording were prohibited inside the shop. The reason was that even if the photos were meant for personal collection, they could still end up spreading widely. Seeing the customers enjoying their ramen made Yashiro tempted to have some too. However, she had already decided not to eat ramen anymore to avoid gaining weight. While the others enjoyed the employee meal, Yashiro chose to go to a cafe to have a salad for dinner. While at the cafe, she accidentally saw Sasaki sitting in the back seat of a car. That sight lingered in his mind, making it hard for him to focus on work. When he brought up the topic with Krishna, Krishna confirmed that Sasaki did go home. However, for a clearer explanation, he suggested that Sasaki should be the one to explain it himself, since his secret was already out. Sasaki finally decided to tell the truth. He revealed that he was actually the real owner of a Kenako ramen shop. He had bought the shop using an inheritance he received from his former master. One day, while Yashiro and Krishna were making noodles, Krishna shared a bit about his past. She was actually born in a zoo. Her father was a Siberian tiger, while his mother was a Bengal tiger. However, after their contract with the zoo ended, her parents had to return to their respective countries, leaving Krishna behind. During her lonely days, Sasaki came and helped her until she could live independently as she does now. On another day, the mama-san from the building next door stopped by the ramen shop. She was curious because, unlike previous years, no one had asked for her help in brushing a tiger's fur. Bunzo then explained that fur brushing was now entirely Yashiro's responsibility. Thanks to her, Krishna's molting season had ended without any problems. Hearing this, Mama-san became a bit concerned and suggested that Yashiro visit her place. She explained that this job was physically demanding and could cause strain in his hands. After meeting Mama-san, Yashiro returned to her task of brushing the cat's fur. Not long after, he was asked to taste the gyoza made by Sabu. The gyoza tasted different from usual. It turned out that Sabu had changed the recipe without permission and had already started mass-producing it. After trying it, Yashiro thought that despite the small adjustments, Sabu's gyoza still tasted delicious. On a different day, an elderly woman named Tajima visited the ramen shop. Her arrival took Sabu and Bunzo by surprise. They both looked tense because Tajima was known for testing their skills. The reason for her visit was to deliver dried bamboo shoots, but before handing them over, she wanted to make sure they were still capable of serving ramen that met her high standards. While Bunzo prepared the ramen, Hana tried making conversation with her. She asked about Mr. Manmaru, the old cat who lived with Tajima. Manmaru also played a role in helping the employees train so that their fur wouldn't shed easily. Yashiro was curious about this training, but Krishna couldn't explain it, as it was something that couldn't be described in detail to humans. Tajima mentioned that she rarely met cats like them. In her opinion, the employees at the shop were not only serious about their work but also highly independent. However, even though she admired them, she personally preferred ordinary house cats that lived a relaxed life. Before long, the shop's signature dish, a Kenako shoyu ramen, was ready to be served. After tasting it, Tajima immediately called Bunzo over and patted his head, a sign that she was satisfied with the ramen he had made. That afternoon, Yashiro arrived at the shop carrying a large watermelon. His relatives were having a big harvest, and he didn't think he could finish it all by himself. Coincidentally, Krishna loved watermelon, so Sasaki decided to share it with all the employees. Without hesitation, Bunzo cut the watermelon, and they all enjoyed it together. That night, an unusual customer came to the shop. After finishing his ramen, the customer called Sasaki over to discuss a potential partnership. He introduced himself as Mitsuro, a representative from a well-known culinary franchise. He claimed to have heard rumors about a Kenako ramen for a long time and considered the shop an ideal place that could consistently attract customers. Because of this, he was confident that if his company could harness the appeal of a Kenako ramen, they could become the leading business in the restaurant industry. When Sasaki asked for more details, Mitsuro enthusiastically explained that they wanted to adopt a Kenako ramen's management system into their business. Additionally, they planned to open branches in various locations across the country. In response, Sasaki explained that feline employees like those at a Kenako ramen were not easy to find. After all, cats inherently disliked working. Moreover, they still needed to be educated and trained, which would take a significant amount of time and resources. Despite Sasaki's explanation, Mitsuro refused to give up. This time, he made a different offer. Mitsuro wanted a Kenako ramen to join his company, after which he planned to establish a cat recruitment division to gradually prepare for the project. Sasaki politely declined the offer, but Bunzo firmly stated that the cats would never allow anyone to treat them as mere tools. On that scorching hot day, Mitsuro arrogantly declared that he always got whatever he wanted. Then, He and his secretary abruptly left the shop. As they walked away, Mitsuru ordered his secretary, Shirafuji, to investigate their business partners and plan a sabotage. However, Shirafuji, who seemed to have a soft spot for cats, was visibly displeased by Mitsuru's attitude. Without hesitation, she resigned on the spot and left Mitsuru behind. Sasaki decided to close up early for the night, but just as he was about to lock the shop, he noticed a mother struggling with the intense heat. Feeling sorry for her, he invited her to rest inside the shop and even offered to look after her baby. The woman was deeply grateful for his kindness. Not long after, her stomach began to growl. Sasaki quickly asked if she would like to order some ramen since there were no other customers at the moment. He assured her that he would take care of her baby while she ate. Hearing this, the woman immediately agreed and ordered a bowl of ramen, entrusting her baby to Sasaki. It had been a long time since she had eaten such delicious ramen, and she truly savored every bite. After finishing her meal, she was able to continue her journey feeling full, while her baby seemed more energetic than before. During their break, Hana reminded Sasaki that this kind of service couldn't be offered all the time. Sometimes, he needed to learn to say no and avoid overexerting himself by taking on tasks beyond his limits. Meanwhile, as Yashiro brushed the cat's fur, the cats felt that his skills had significantly improved. Even Krishna and Bunzo dozed off while being groomed by him. However, Hana didn't feel any difference. This was likely because she had always preferred to groom herself rather than rely on others, despite Yashiro having a variety of brushes with different shapes and functions. But after trying a new brush, Hana finally felt comfortable and nearly fell asleep. In reality, Yashiro's improvement in grooming wasn't just because of the brushes. She had studied feline anatomy and the natural direction of fur growth. Sometimes, she even asked Sasaki to help him observe the cat's body structure in more detail. As a token of appreciation for Yashiro's dedication, Sasaki decided to give him a gift, a cooling fabric shirt and a special Akeniko ramen staff t-shirt. Yashiro was thrilled with the gift. Overjoyed, she immediately wore the staff t-shirt while working. After finishing their shift, Yashiro, Krishna, and Hana slept together in the employee lounge. The next morning, as soon as Yashiro woke up, she headed straight to the shop to greet Bunzo. At that moment, Bunzo was making chicken oil, carefully following every detail of the recipe that had been passed down by the shop's previous owner. Curious, Yashiro asked about the former owner. Bunzo then began to tell the story. The previous owner was a man who had a deep love for ramen. He didn't care much about profits, his only goal was to ensure that customers could enjoy the best ramen possible. Most of his earnings were spent on researching and refining his ramen recipes, making him more of a researcher than a businessman. Bunzo and Sasaki were once stray cats before the owner took them in. Even though he didn't have much money, he still made sure to take them to the vet for checkups. Over time, Bunzo often helped around the restaurant, while Sasaki was eventually adopted by someone else. At that moment, Bunzo mentioned that Krishna had made noodles with a softer texture. He then declared that he too would be developing a new recipe. Sasaki was shocked to hear this, as Bunzo had always been adamant about preserving the original taste of their ramen noodles. However, Bunzo simply stated that he refused to be outdone by Krishna. Hearing this, all the employees became excited about the new menu. Bunzo then assigned Yashiro to be the first taste tester for the new dish. But Yashiro simply smiled and said, "Every dish in this shop is already delicious." When Yashiro arrived in the morning, he noticed that Sabu and Hana were acting very strangely. Both of them were already hard at work, even though the shop hadn't opened yet. Curious, Yashiro asked Krishna what was going on. Krishna explained that Hana and Sabu were actually in the middle of a fight because someone had eaten Sabu's snack. Sabu accused Hana of being the culprit, while Hana kept denying it, which only made Sabu even angrier. This issue had become a concern for the other employees, including Krishna. Even though their argument didn't affect their work, no one wanted to see their coworkers in conflict. According to Krishna, if Hana had really eaten the snack, she would have admitted it honestly. So, if this were a detective novel, the least suspicious person would actually be the culprit. However, Krishna's reasoning ended up making him a suspect as well. During break time, the atmosphere in the employee room was extremely awkward. Hana kept insisting that she was innocent, while Sabu continued blaming her. Bunzo tried to mediate by giving Sabu some boiled duck meat, hoping to cheer him up. But Hana immediately protested, saying it was unfair for only Sabu to get food. Their argument escalated even more. Finally, Bunzo confessed that he was the one who had eaten the snack. He felt genuinely guilty and apologized, not realizing that the snack had caused such a big fight. Upon hearing his confession, Sabu was no longer angry at Hana. In fact, he admitted that he originally intended to share the snack with Bunzo anyway. However, Hana, still upset about being falsely accused, immediately got back at him by eating Sabu's remaining food. Feeling bad, Sabu apologized to her. That night, the muscular man who had previously visited the shop returned. However, this time, he didn't order the special ramen because he had an upcoming match. Instead, he chose a lighter ramen so he wouldn't feel too full. He also wanted to discuss something. He hoped to learn from Master Tiger, as he always lost in his fights. Unfortunately, the tiger at the shop was actually a timid female who couldn't teach him how to fight, she could only scare opponents. Even so, the cats still supported him in their own way. Sakura then arrived at the shop and ordered a veggie ramen. She approached Taki and apologized for taking longer than expected with her work. Hana and Sasaki then told Taki that if he won his match, he should tell Sakura all about it. Sakura was confused by their words, but as she ate her ramen, she promised to support Taki in his upcoming fight. On a different day, Sasaki asked Yashiro for help with administrative tasks. Yashiro was assigned to input data from various documents while Sasaki had to visit the trade association to handle some business matters. After receiving his instructions, Yashiro started working. However, while reading one of the letters, he was shocked to discover that Sasaki's real name was actually Pudding Sasaki. Not long after, Hana asked Yashiro to help wash the dishes. But the moment she realized that Yashiro had accidentally learned Sasaki's real name, she immediately warned him never to call Sasaki by that name, no matter how cute it sounded. A little while later, Sasaki returned to the shop. As soon as he walked in, Hana wasted no time informing him that Yashiro had found out his real name. Sasaki didn't mind too much since he had already been called by that name earlier at the bank. However, despite that, he still refused to let anyone address him by it, because, in his opinion, it was extremely embarrassing. Elsewhere, a woman was listening to a song by an idol cat when she came across a photo of Hana on social media. She immediately recognized her and decided to go meet her. Meanwhile, at the ramen shop, Hana was lying down, looking exhausted after a long day serving many customers. To make her job easier, she wanted Sasaki to buy a server robot. However, that didn't seem possible since many customers would be disappointed. After all, the way Hana served customers was a signature part of the shop's charm. Besides, even if Sasaki wanted to lighten her workload, there was no other cat as skilled as Hana in serving guests. Hearing this, Hana's mood improved, and she returned to work with enthusiasm. Not long after, Shirosaki visited the shop. This time, he wasn't too worried about his cat allergy because he had taken medicine, and tomorrow was his day off. He ordered a Kaniko's rich ramen, and in addition to his meal, he was also given a complimentary bowl of white rice and gyoza as a bonus from Sasaki. According to Bunzo, Shirosaki wasn't just smart but also very reliable. Rumor had it that he was working while saving up for college, which was why everyone at Akiniko always supported him. A little while later, a woman entered the shop and called Hana by the name, Pipi. She had come to take Hana back home. Sasaki tried to explain that there was no cat named Pipi at the shop, but the woman was certain that Hana was Lovapi because of the heart-shaped mark on her stomach. She insisted that Hana should stop working there and return to being an idle cat. However, Hana refused to go with her. She was fed up with the entertainment industry, which never valued her opinions. She also despised the comments from people who insulted Yoko for being her owner. In the midst of this confrontation, Gusawara, who had been in disguise, stepped forward and firmly stated that Hana was an independent cat with legal rights. Even though Yoko was her former owner, she had no right to force her to return. After work, they talked throughout the night until the issue was finally resolved. The next morning, Hana told her coworkers that she would continue working at the ramen shop. Hearing this, Krishna was overjoyed, as he had been worried that Hana might quit and return to being an idle cat. Since Hana hadn't gotten enough rest the previous night, Sasaki told her to groom her fur first while the others prepared to open the shop. While brushing her fur, Yashiro admitted that he had once watched a video of Hana singing and dancing. From that video, he concluded that no other cat could ever replace her. After finishing her grooming, Hana went back to serving customers. Not long after, Yoko arrived at the shop as a customer. She mentioned that she would be leaving today and planned to order the special ramen before heading home. While others were resting, Bunzo focused on sharpening his knife. As he entered the employee room, he saw his colleagues sleeping together. At that moment, Yashiro was asleep while wearing glasses to prevent them from getting damaged. Bunzo carefully removed them and then lay down to sleep near them. In the past, a woman named Sasaki once adopted a cat that had been taken in by the owner of a small restaurant. However, not long after being adopted, the orange cat suddenly disappeared and returned to the restaurant. The cat insisted on staying there, leaving the owner with no choice but to keep it. Initially, the owner worried that some customers might not like the presence of a cat, but over time, the orange cat was able to talk and even greet customers. The restaurant owner eventually named him Bunzo. In the present, while on his way to work, Yashiro found a stray kitten on the street. Feeling sorry for it, he decided to take it to the restaurant. Once there, the kitten was placed in a cage and given enough food. However, despite being fed, the kitten seemed frightened and remained wary of the people around it. Since it was unclear whether the kitten was a stray or had run away from home, Sasaki decided to let it rest at the restaurant for the time being. Later, she would contact an animal protection organization. After that, Yashiro asked Hana if the kitten could talk like him. Hana explained that it depended on each cat, but if the kitten found an owner who could care for it wholeheartedly, it would most likely never need to learn to speak. The reason was that just by meowing, all its needs would surely be met. After being left alone for a long time while everyone worked, the kitten eventually fell asleep from exhaustion. However, when Yashiro was about to clean its cage, the kitten suddenly woke up and escaped. Coincidentally, Gosowara had just arrived at the restaurant when the kitten jumped towards him. Instantly smitten, Gosowara asked for permission to adopt it. With the kitten's situation resolved, Yashiro returned to work alongside Krishna. As Yashiro became more proficient in operating the noodle-making machine, Krishna now had more time to refine his noodle-making techniques. However, during the cutting process, the thickness of the noodles remained inconsistent. As a result, Krishna lost confidence, feeling that the noodles were still not good enough to be sold. Hana then suggested using a machine for the cutting process, but Krishna refused because she deliberately wanted to make handmade noodles. Seeing this problem, Bunzo decided to sharpen the knife Krishna was using. After the knife was sharpened, Krishna was able to cut the noodles much more easily, and the results were significantly neater than before. On his day off, Yashiro spent his free time watching Sabu participate in an online gaming tournament. In the tournament, Sabu successfully advanced to the second round but was ultimately defeated by an opponent from a professional team. The next day, Yashiro discussed the tournament with Sabu. Although the loss was disappointing, Sabu admitted that his skills were still limited, so he didn't take it too hard. However, one thing still puzzled Yashiro: the reason why Sabu had ignored an invitation to collaborate with the red-tailed team. Sabu himself was unaware of the invitation. He hadn't noticed it because he wasn't very skilled at reading. To confirm, he asked for permission to check the letters in the post box. When the restaurant opened, Sabu started acting strangely. He had trouble concentrating on his tasks and made frequent mistakes. Sasaki and Hana asked if he was okay, and Sabu insisted he was fine, though he was still disappointed about the tournament. Bunzo, despite not understanding much about gaming, could tell that Sabu was actually feeling frustrated. Later, while talking with Yashiro again, Sabu finally admitted that he had indeed received an invitation from a professional team. However, he chose to reject it because he felt that his current team at the restaurant was much better. That night, two drunk customers visited the restaurant. One of them couldn't stay calm and kept disturbing the other guests because he wanted to smoke indoors. It turned out that the drunk customer was Yashiro's senior from his previous job, the person who had made his life difficult and ultimately drove him to quit. Upon realizing that Yashiro was now working at the cat restaurant, the man immediately belittled him and threw a series of insults. Yashiro refused to accept the humiliation and firmly stated that his current workplace was much healthier compared to their old company. Other customers also stood up for Yashiro, telling the drunk man to leave if he was only there to cause trouble. The man became furious, but his confidence instantly shrank when Krishna approached him. Later that night, Yashiro met with the lawyer Mikio to discuss the case of Sasaki, a cat abandoned by its owner. It turned out that Sasaki's owner had been a successful businessman suffering from a rare illness. While bedridden in the hospital, no one was there for him, only his beloved cat remained by his side. Not only that, but the cat also took care of his daily needs and stayed with him until his final moments. After telling this story, Mikio asked how Yashiro's job was going. Yashiro expressed his concern that he was slowly becoming a cat lover, even though Bunzo had stated during his initial interview that they didn't hire cat lovers as employees. However, it seemed that Yashiro didn't need to worry, because the cats had already prepared a surprise to officially welcome him as a permanent staff member.